My sister illegally moved into my house while I was away. Mom gave her my stolen key. But when I called the police in front of her kids, they got arrested, and the entire family declared me the black sheep. Now I live alone, but I'm free. I'm 32 years old. I work in tech. And I need to tell this story because what happened a few months ago basically forced me to cut off all contact with my family. And even though I know I did the right thing, there are still moments when I wake up in the middle of the night wondering if I'm the crazy one or if my family really is as toxic as I think. I guess I should start at the beginning. When I was a kid and was just starting to realize that something wasn't right in my house. I grew up in Texas, in one of those families that from the outside look perfect but inside are a total disaster. I have an older sister, Rachel, who's like 35 now, and for as long as I can remember, she was always my parents' favorite. Like it wasn't something subtle, it was obvious to everyone. When Rachel turned 16, my parents threw her this huge party with a DJ, professional decorations, 3-tier cake, the whole thing. They invited like 100 people and easily spent $5,000 or more. When I turned 16, they took me to dinner at a regular Italian restaurant and gave me a sweater. I'm not exaggerating, that was literally it. I remember trying to tell myself it didn't matter, that birthdays weren't that important. But inside, I felt like trash, Because it was so obvious that to them I wasn't worth the same effort. And it wasn't just birthdays. At Christmas, Rachel received like 10 expensive gifts. Things like new laptops, designer clothes, trips, while I got 3 or 4 practical things like socks, textbooks, maybe a $50 gift card if I was lucky. When I asked my mom why there was such a big difference, she always said something like, "Oh, Megan, don't be dramatic. We love you the same," or "Rachel has more needs than you." As if that made any sense. The thing is, I learned from a very young age not to expect anything from them, not to ask for anything, because I knew the answer was always going to be no, or some excuse about why Rachel deserved something more than me. When it came time to go to college, things got worse. Rachel decided to go to a university like 2 hours from home, nothing too far, and my parents paid for everything. Like everything. Full tuition, the dorm, books, food. They even gave her extra money each month so she could go out with her friends and buy whatever she wanted. She didn't have to work a single day while studying, basically had 4 years of paid vacation while pretending to study communications or something like that. I, on the other hand, wanted to study computer science at a university in Houston, which was about the same distance as Rachel's. And when I told my parents, my dad looked at me and said, "Megan, we think it would be good for you to learn to be more independent, so we're going to support you, but you need to pay your part." I was standing there like, my part? Seriously? And it turns out my part was basically everything except half the tuition, meaning I had to pay rent, food, books, transportation, everything while working part-time and studying full-time in a super demanding major. Oh, and as if that wasn't enough, when I went to visit them during holidays, they charged me rent to stay in my own childhood bedroom, like $200 a week, because according to them, I need to learn the value of money. Rachel never paid a cent when she went to visit them with her boyfriend Chris. In fact, my parents even gave them gas money. I graduated with a 3.9 gigapascals, almost perfect, after 4 years of basically not sleeping, working like 30 hours a week at a tech store, and studying until 3 in the morning almost every day. I was proud of myself, honestly, because I did it alone, without their help. And I thought that maybe, just maybe, this time, my parents were going to recognize my effort. My graduation was on a Saturday morning. It was horribly hot, like 95 degrees or something, and after the ceremony my parents took me to lunch at an Olive Garden. Yeah, Olive Garden. The place you go when you have a discount coupon. We ate pasta. They told me they were proud. They gave me a card with $100 inside, and that was it. We didn't even take pictures. Rachel graduated 2 years earlier with a 3.2 inches and easy major, and my parents threw her a huge party in the backyard with professional catering. Mariachi, the whole neighborhood invited, and they gave her a 2-week trip to Europe with Chris, her boyfriend at the time, who's now her husband. I remember that day of my graduation, I sat in my car in the Olive Garden parking lot after saying goodbye to them and cried for like half an hour. I don't know, maybe more, because I realized that I was never, ever, going to be enough for them, no matter how hard I tried. Years passed, and things didn't get better. Rachel married Chris, who's basically a professional bum, Like the man has had like 10 different jobs in the last 8 years and never lasts more than 6 months at any of them because he always has some excuse about why he got fired or why he quit. And every time he's out of work, which is basically every few months, Rachel runs to my parents and they give her money, pay her rent, buy her food, whatever. They have 3 kids, Ella, who's 5, Benjamin, who's 4, and Connor, who's 2. And although obviously the kids aren't to blame for anything, Rachel basically uses them as manipulation tools all the time. Like if my parents don't do what she wants, she threatens not to let them see the grandkids, and my parents completely melt and do whatever to keep her happy. Meanwhile, I got an incredible job as a software developer, was making good money, had my own apartment that I paid for myself, and I was still invisible to them. Family dinners were basically 2 hours of listening to Rachel complain about her life, while my parents solved all her problems and I sat there wondering why I kept going. About a year ago, I decided I wanted to buy a house. I had good savings, my credit was excellent, and I was tired of throwing money away on rent, so I started looking. I didn't tell my parents or Rachel anything because, honestly, I didn't want to hear their opinions or have them stick their noses in my decision. I wanted something small, cozy, just for me. Like a space that was completely mine where nobody could judge me or make me feel less than. The problem is I made the mistake of mentioning to a coworker, Jennifer, that I was house hunting, and it turns out Jennifer is neighbors with one of Rachel's friends, and you can imagine what happened. Like 2 days after that casual conversation at the office, my phone exploded with messages from my mom and Rachel. The messages were like, "Oh, Megan, how exciting that you're looking for a house. Why didn't you tell us? We want to help you." And at first I thought, well, maybe this time they're going to be normal. Maybe they genuinely want to support me. How naive I was. Turns out my mom and Rachel teamed up to bombard me with links to houses, but not just any houses. No, they were all huge houses with 4 or 5 bedrooms, with giant yards, close to where Rachel lives, and they all cost like double or triple my budget. Every message came with comments like, "This would be perfect for when family comes to visit you," or "Look, this one has a pool. The kids would love it," or "This one is only 5 minutes from Rachel's house. It would be so convenient." I'm not stupid. I immediately understood what they were doing. They wanted me to buy a big house near Rachel so it would basically become their second home, like a place where they could go every weekend, where Rachel could leave the kids when she wanted a break, where Chris could go watch football on a big TV that I would pay for. It was so obvious it made me sick. I told them several times that I appreciated the suggestions, but that I was looking for something smaller, something that fit my needs, but they didn't understand or didn't want to understand. My mom even told me, "Megan, don't be selfish. Think about the family. You need space for when we come to stay." And I was like, "Stay? Who said anyone is going to stay at my house?" But I didn't say anything because I knew if I contradicted them, it would get worse. The thing is, I kept looking on my own, without telling them anything, and like 2 months later, I found the perfect house. It was a small cottage-style house, 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, nice kitchen, small but pretty yard, in a quiet neighborhood like 40 minutes from where Rachel lives, which for me was perfect because it wasn't so close they could show up unannounced, but not so far it would be a problem if I needed to go somewhere. It cost exactly what I could comfortably afford, and the moment I saw it, I knew it was mine. I made the offer, it was accepted. I went through the whole closing process, and at no point did I tell my parents or Rachel anything. Every time they asked me how the search was going, I said something vague like, "Oh, I'm still looking at options. Nothing concrete yet." And they kept sending me links to mansions I was never going to buy. The day I closed on my little house, I felt free for the first time in my life. Like I literally felt like a huge weight had been lifted off my shoulders. It was mine, only mine, and nobody could tell me what to do with it or how to use it or who could or couldn't be there. I decided I was going to tell them at the next family dinner, which happened to be like in 2 weeks, because I thought it was the right thing to do, you know? Be honest with them even though they didn't deserve it. During those 2 weeks, Rachel and my mom kept sending links to houses, more and more insistent, and I just responded with things like, interesting or okay, I'll consider it, without committing to anything. The day of the family dinner arrived, a Sunday afternoon at my parents' house, and from the moment I got there, I could feel the tension in the air, like Rachel was looking at me weird. My mom was being too attentive to me, which never happened, and my dad didn't even greet me properly. We had dinner, regular food, roasted chicken or something like that, And when we finished and were in the living room, my mom said, "So, Megan, tell us, have you decided which house you're going to buy? I saw your list of favorites on Zillow. They all look beautiful." That's when I realized that probably Jennifer or someone else had given them more information than I wanted to share. But whatever. It was time to tell them. I took a deep breath and said, "Well, the truth is, I already bought a house. I closed like 2 weeks ago." There was such a heavy silence that I swear you could hear the birds outside. And then my mom said, "What? You already bought? Why didn't you tell us? Which one did you buy?" I told them I bought a little 2-bedroom house in such and such neighborhood, that it was perfect for me. And Rachel literally exploded. She started yelling like, 2 bedrooms? Are you kidding? And where are we supposed to stay when we visit you? Where are the kids going to sleep? And I, calm but firm, said, "Rachel, it's my house. I don't need space for you to stay, because I'm not planning on you coming to stay. My house, my rules." She turned red, like I had never seen her so angry, and started saying things like, "You've always been selfish. You never think about anyone but yourself. After everything we've done for you." And I almost laughed because everything they've done for me? Seriously? My mom joined in and said, "Megan, this is very disappointing. We expected you to be more considerate of your family." And my dad, who almost never spoke in these situations, I said, "I think your mom and your sister are right. You should have thought about everyone before making such a big decision." I stood up, grabbed my bag, and said, "Look, I'm sorry if my decisions about my life and my money don't seem right to you, but I'm not going to keep living to please Rachel. I bought the house that I wanted with my money. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, but that's not my problem." I left there and went to my apartment, and honestly, I felt amazing, like empowered, free. But I also knew this wasn't going to end there, that they were going to try something to manipulate me or make me feel guilty, because that's how they always worked. And I was right. The next few days were a constant bombardment of text messages, calls, voicemails, everything telling me I was a terrible daughter, a horrible sister, that I was destroying the family, that the kids were sad because they weren't going to be able to go to my new house, as if the kids even knew or cared where I lived. Rachel even posted on Facebook super passive-aggressive things like, "It's sad when family is no longer a priority for some people," or "when your sister chooses selfishness over family love," and all her friends commented supportive things toward her, while I was left looking like the villain. My mom sent me like 30 messages in one day, all variations of "Please reconsider. Think about the kids. Don't be like this." And each message made me feel worse, but also more sure that I had made the right decision. Like a week after the disaster dinner, Rachel showed up at my apartment without warning, like she knocked on the door on a Saturday morning around 9, and when I opened it, she was there with all 3 kids. Everyone in pajamas, her with red eyes, like she'd been crying. And she told me, "Megan, please, we need your help. Chris lost his job again. We can't pay rent. They're going to evict us. We need to stay with you until we get back on our feet." And I was like, "Stay with me? In my 1-bedroom apartment? Or in my new house?" And she said, "Well, we thought we could stay in your new house. You have 2 bedrooms, we can stay in one and you in the other, and the kids can sleep in the living room or something. It would just be temporary." I told her, "Rachel, no, absolutely not. First, I'm barely moving into that house in 2 weeks. Second, it's not a family house. It's my house. And third, it's always temporary with you until it becomes permanent. So no." She started crying harder, saying things like, "I can't believe you're doing this to us. We're your family. The kids aren't to blame." And although I felt bad for the kids, I knew that if I let them in, they were never going to leave. I closed the door, went to my bedroom, and cried because it's hard. You know? It's hard to say no to your sister when she brings her kids and tells you she needs you. But I also knew it was the right thing because they had used me my whole life, and it was enough. After that, the messages and calls got so bad that I had to change my phone number, like it was the only way to have peace. I blocked everyone on social media, my mom, my dad, Rachel, Chris, everyone, and for the first time in months I could breathe easy. I moved into my little house like 2 weeks later, and it was the best day of my life. Seriously, it was everything I had dreamed of, small but perfect, with enough space for me and nobody else. Decorated exactly how I wanted, without anyone's opinions, without judgments. Just me. The first few days were magical. Like I'd wake up in the morning and couldn't believe it was real. That I finally had something that was completely mine. But as always, things couldn't stay peaceful for long. Like 3 weeks after moving in, my mom showed up at my door on a Tuesday afternoon. I was working from home, focused on a project, and I heard the doorbell. When I opened it, there she was with a fake smile and an apple pie in her hands, saying, "Megan, honey, I came to apologize. I behaved badly. Your dad and I just want what's best for you. Can I come in?" And I, stupidly, thought maybe she's sincere. Maybe she finally understands. So I let her in. She asked for a tour of the house, and I gave it to her. I showed her everything, told her how I had decorated each room, showed her the yard, and she said things like, "Oh, how pretty. It's very cozy. You can tell you put love into it." And I felt good, like she was finally validating me. We sat in the living room, ate pie, talked about random things, and after like an hour she left, saying she loved me and wanted to rebuild our relationship. I hugged her, told her I wanted that too, and closed the door feeling hopeful for the first time in months. How stupid I was. I didn't realize at the time, but while I was giving her the tour and we were eating pie, she had been observing everything, taking mental notes of the layout of the house, where the locks were, everything. And the worst part, when she left, I realized like 2 days later that my spare key, which I had in a kitchen drawer, had disappeared. At that moment, horrible panic set in, like did she really steal my key? But I told myself maybe I had lost it, that I was being paranoid, that my mom wouldn't do something like that. I should have trusted my instinct. Like a week later, I had to go out of town for work, like a 4-day trip to Dallas for a conference, and I mentioned it to a work friend, just as casual conversation, but I didn't tell anyone in my family. I left Monday morning early, left my house locked, alarm activated, everything in order, and I left. Thursday afternoon, I was driving back home, tired, but happy to return. And when I got there and opened the door, I almost had a heart attack. There was noise inside, like voices, kids' laughter. And when I went into the living room, there were Rachel, Chris, and all 3 kids, with boxes everywhere, their stuff all over my house, and Rachel saw me and told me with the most casual face in the world, "Oh, hi Megan, you got here earlier than we thought. We were just getting settled. Do you like how we arranged the couch?" I stood there like, what the fuck is happening? And I yelled at her, "What are you doing in my house? How did you get in?" And Rachel said, "Oh, relax. Mom gave us her key. She said you wouldn't mind us staying for a little while we find a place, since we're family and all." I told them to get out immediately, that they had no right to be there. And Chris stood up and said, "Hey, calm down. Your mom said it was okay. Plus you have 2 bedrooms. Don't be selfish." The kids were running all over the place. Benjamin had spilled juice on my new couch. Connor was crying, and I felt like I was going to explode. I told them you have 5 minutes to get out or I'm calling the police. And Rachel laughed and said, "Don't be dramatic. You're not going to call the police on your own family." I called them. I dialed 911 right there in front of them and said, "There are people who entered my house illegally and refused to leave. I need help." And Rachel went pale. Chris started saying, Wait, that's not necessary." And I said, Yes, it is necessary. You don't have permission to be here. You're trespassing on my property." The police arrived in like 15 minutes. 2 officers. And when I explained the situation, one of them asked Rachel if she had written permission to be there, and she said no, that my mom had given her the key. And the officer explained that my mom had no authority to give permission over a property that wasn't hers, and that technically they were committing trespassing. Rachel started crying harder, saying we were family, that I was cruel, that the kids had nowhere to go, and the officer, very professional, told her, "Ma'am, you need to collect your things and leave now, or I'm going to have to arrest you." They left, furious, yelling horrible things at me while they packed their stuff. Rachel saying she was never going to forgive me, Chris saying I was a heartless bitch, and the kids crying because obviously they didn't understand what was happening. But when they finally left, I locked the door, sat on the living room floor, and cried until I ran out of tears. The officers were very kind. They recommended I change all the locks immediately and consider to a restraining order if the situation got worse, and they left me their card in case I needed anything else. The next day, I hired a locksmith who came and changed all the locks in the house, installed security cameras at the entrance and backyard, and contacted a lawyer who helped me draft a cease and desist letter that I sent to my mom, Rachel, and Chris, basically telling them that if they came near my property or contacted me in any way again, I was going to take legal action. The lawyer cost me like $800, but it was worth every penny because I needed them to know I was serious. That was like 4 months ago. I haven't spoken to any of them since then. My mom tried sending me letters by mail, all full of fake apologies and manipulation, saying things like, "Please forgive me. I just wanted to help your sister. We're family. We can't end like this." But I didn't respond to any of them. Rachel created fake profiles on social media to try to contact me, but I block them every time I see them. My dad never tried to communicate directly, which doesn't surprise me because he always let my mom and Rachel do whatever they wanted without intervening. Last week, I ran into a distant cousin at the supermarket, and she told me the whole family is talking about me, saying I'm the black sheep, that I abandoned my family when they needed me most, that I'm selfish and cruel. I told her I didn't care what they said, that I knew the truth, and that after 32 years of being treated like a second-class citizen, I deserved to live my life on my own terms. She looked at me like I was crazy and left without saying anything else. I'm not going to lie. There are days when I feel guilty. Like, should I have helped them? Am I really as bad as they say? But then I remember everything. The years of favoritism, the humiliations, being used over and over again. And I realize, no, that setting boundaries doesn't make me a bad person, that protecting my peace and my space doesn't make me selfish. That saying no to toxic people, even if they're your family, is valid and necessary. My house is still my refuge, my safe place, and although sometimes I feel lonely, I'd rather be alone in peace 1,000 times than surrounded by people who only see me as a resource to exploit. I guess that's enough for now.